Good afternoon. It's Monday, and we're going to go over APUSH Topic 6.11 and 7.4 Reform in the Gilded Age and the Progressives. Let me shut that off. There we go. There's three learning objectives with this lesson. Explain how different reform movements responded to the rise of industrial capitalism in the Gilded Age. The second one is compare the goals and effects of the progressive reform movement. And the third is compare attitudes toward the use of natural resources from 1890 to 1945. So I have posted this in Google Classroom, the lesson objectives. Also, you got two handouts in there. One's an assessment, the other one's an activity. We're going to start with the activity. So when did the progressive era begin and end? So you all should have a copy of this, and you should be following along when you're watching this or listening to this presentation. So go over the paragraphs. You'll be taking part in a periodization activity. So historians have periodized events anytime they try to develop a narrative. When should a story start? When should a story end? Military events are often very easy to periodize. Wars usually have the first battle and a last battle, or a treaty at the conclusion. Social movements like the progressive movement or the civil rights movement are much harder to periodize. Historians must look for turning points within these movements. When did these movements seem to be gaining momentum? When did they appear to be achieving most of their victories? These are things historians must take into account when they set the start dates and end dates for social movements, and the progressive movement was a big social movement. Another analogy could be made for human life. We usually carve up human life into distinct periods: baby, toddler, adolescent, young adult, elderly, etc. How do we know when someone is elderly? Usually we look for a multitude of defining characteristics. We can't say that someone is elderly the second their hair turns gray. If that were the case, there would be many people in their 40s who would qualify. Similarly, we can't say the progressive movement started at the first date on the timeline. We need to look for a multitude of defining characteristics or reforms to occur. Once we have this, then we can justifiably defend a start date. For end dates, historians usually look for when a social movement begins to lose momentum. When does the movement fail to achieve any new victories? When does the nation begin to shift its attention to other issues? When you notice these things happening, you can come up with a defensible end date for a movement. So you're going to have plenty of time to work on this and go through and review this timeline, okay, the dates over here. There's quite a few. All right. So you're going to select start dates and end dates, and you're going to, if you can FaceTime other people in class and talk about it. It's kind of difficult right now because essentially we're going to do a class debate on it, but we can't really have an open debate. But either that or you can get on chat and while everybody's there and you could talk about it typing wise. But either or, whatever, to get some other fresh ideas out there and different perspectives from your classmates. That's fine. So when is the start date and when is the end date? And this is coming from your perspective. You're going to pull that out of here, the start date and the end date, out of this timeline. And you're going to tell me why you think that is on each. Okay? And then you are going to put in the defining reforms in here, in this box. Okay? So that should take some time. The other thing that I did pass out to you in classroom was an assessment. A famous picture here. Probably guess which president this was. One of our most energetic characters of President Teddy Roosevelt. So the traditional periodization of the progressive era is a time that I'm not going to say because I want you to figure it out. But during Teddy Roosevelt's presidency, he had a number of acts that he proposed. This right here was one of the biggest ones. You can see Teddy Roosevelt. He has a rake in there. It's called an investigation. It's melting from the meat scandal, which the book, The Jungle by Upton Sinclair, really pinpointed the meat industry, the meat packing industry. And out of that book came many, many reform acts. So what you're going to do, this is an assessment. You got a couple of scoring notes. You got the College Board scoring note here that you can look up, and also have a nice little, if you click on it, it'll take you to free response questions. Woohoo, from 2018. So you can play with that and look at that. It's 12 pages long. So make sure you take a look at that and that web link and this web link, and explain what these are. All right, so if you have any questions, I've set up a Google chat for the entire class. Utilize it. Like I said, it's not social time on chat. You guys have other avenues for that. Slapface, Instacrap, whatever you guys do, text. Okay, whatever happened to texting. Those sort of things. I don't want to see any dancing on TikTok or any of that stuff. All right, so any questions, chat me on Google Hangouts. I've sent invites to all of you. That is going to be your best way to get an instant response. If you email me, I've got to go through so many emails a day from kids and answer them. It's kind of cumbersome, but the chat is really easy. So I've enabled it for everybody in class. All you got to do is accept the invite and get in. All right, good luck, and I'll see you on Wednesday. I'll post another assignment.